Welcome to Context Window, your weekly look at the bleeding edge of AI coding tools. Let's see what's new.
Okay, so we've spent the last 2 years dissecting how AI writes code, summarizes emails, even drafts entire reports. But this month, it feels like the narrative completely shifted.
It absolutely has. We're not just talking about AI generating text anymore. We're talking about AI making real-world financial transactions. As of March 2026, the frontier isn't about what AI can say, it's about what it can buy.
And who's on the hook when it buys the wrong thing? Because that's the question that keeps coming up with these new live pilots.
Precisely. Forget AI writing a bug. Think about AI making a hallucinated purchase. The implications are massive, and we're just at the beginning.
Next, a truly aggressive move. Devin has dropped its price floor. Cognition AI is making its autonomous software engineer Devin far more accessible.
Previously, Devin was locked behind a $500 a month team tier. Now, there's a $20 a month core plan, charging $2.25 per agent compute unit. This means a solo developer could fix a few bugs a day and only spend $40 to $80 a month for genuine autonomous labor.
That's a game changer for accessibility, isn't it? Suddenly, autonomous software engineering isn't just for the well-funded enterprises.
This is a classic market share land grab by Cognition AI. They just got a $10 billion valuation, and they're using that capital to commoditize autonomy. They're forcing every other player in the space to compete on the quality of agentic execution rather than just the exclusivity of access. It's an incredibly smart, aggressive move.
Over to OpenAI, who just launched Codex Security, formerly known internally as Aardvark. This is their play in the code security space.
They're using frontier models to scan codebases for vulnerabilities. In a recent 30-day period, it scanned over 1.2 million commits, finding thousands of high-severity and critical findings. What's really impressive, though, is their claim of a 90% reduction in over-reported severity and a 50% drop in false positives compared to traditional scanners.
That's a huge improvement because traditional SaaS tools are notorious for overwhelming security teams with noise. So Codex Security is essentially generating custom threat models and then pressure testing those findings?
Exactly. My sharp take here is that code generation is rapidly becoming a commodity. Code security is the new enterprise mode. OpenAI is shifting their pitch from "we help you write code faster" to "we promise you won't get breached by the code our own models just wrote for you." It's a critical pivot.
Finally, Windsurf is facing a quota backlash. The AI IDE, recently acquired by Cognition AI, has introduced strict daily and weekly refresh caps for its premium models like Claude Opus and GPT-5.
Yes, instead of the old monthly pool model, it's now token-based and counts against rolling refresh windows. Heavy users, especially those working on large code bases, are finding their intensive sprint sessions throttled.
So if you're dumping a 100,000-line repo into a prompt, even for a small fix, you're eating up your quota exponentially faster.
Absolutely. The honeymoon phase of unlimited AI compute is officially over. The inference costs of these frontier models are astronomical, and they're finally being passed down. Developers are now going to have to become hyper-efficient context engineers to avoid hitting those daily caps. It's a whole new skill set.
From how AI builds software, let's pivot to how AI is starting to interact with the real-world economy. This is where things get truly wild. We're talking about live production data, not just theoretical hype.
And the biggest news here is the Santander and Visa pilot program in Latin America. On March 12th, they announced the successful completion of a landmark pilot where AI agents autonomously purchased physical goods.
This wasn't a simulation. AI agents bought books in Argentina, Chile, Mexico, and Uruguay. Then, to prove cross-market interoperability and pivot to consumable goods, they were deployed in Brazil to buy chocolates.
Matias Sanchez, the global head of cards and digital solutions at Banco Santander, called it a major step toward making AI-assisted shopping a practical reality. He emphasized it was about secure, interoperable, agentic commerce that maintains strong consumer protections.
So how did they manage this without, things going completely off the rails? The source material talks about something called the Visa Intelligent Commerce, or VIC, platform.
VIC is essentially a suite of integrated APIs, tokenized credentials, and transaction controls. It's designed to allow AI agents to securely discover, select, and purchase products on behalf of consumers. The Santander pilot was crucial because it validated the most friction-heavy points: consent capture, secure data handling, and interoperability.
So they're integrating AI agents as governed participants, almost like a kid with a strict allowance, relying on existing highly regulated payment infrastructure.
That's a perfect analogy. And from a journalistic perspective, this forces us to reevaluate the very concept of consumer trust. Are users trusting the AI's decision-making, or are they trusting the strict financial parameters placed around it?
It sounds like the latter. The report suggests that trust isn't in the AI's ability to pick the best chocolate, but in Visa's guarantee that the AI can't spend more than, say, the allocated $20.
Exactly. This is a critical distinction. Mass adoption of agentic commerce won't require humans to implicitly trust AI. It will require them to trust the financial leashes built by legacy banks. It's about control, not intuition.
Just days after the Santander pilot, Visa launched its Agentic Ready program across Europe. This isn't just a pilot. This is a full-blown strategy from a legacy financial institution.
And a fascinating one at that. They've enlisted 21 major issuing partners, including names like Barclays, HSBC, Revolut, and Commerzbank. Visa isn't trying to rebuild the wheel here. They're not pivoting to blockchain or decentralized ledgers for machine-to-machine payments.
So they're not trying to compete with the crypto world on new tech, but rather retrofitting their existing rails to maintain their monopoly on transaction fees in this AI-driven economy. That's a very smart move.
It's an incredibly pragmatic approach. Matthew Altweg from Visa Europe explicitly stated their goal is to help European issuers prepare for secure, scalable, agent-initiated payments built on infrastructure people already trust. They're adapting, not rebuilding.
And the mechanics of this retrofit rely heavily on existing security tools, primarily tokenization. How does that work in practice with AI agents?
Tokenization is the shield. When an AI agent is sent to make a purchase, it never actually handles your 16-digit credit card number. Instead, Visa issues what they call AI-ready cards. These are tokenized digital credentials. Think of it like a temporary, single-use proxy credit card number.
So if the AI agent is compromised or tricked, or even if it hallucinates something, your underlying bank account information is safe because the sensitive data was never passed through the agent's context window.
Precisely. And to add another layer of security and accountability, Visa is deploying something they call a biometric anchor.
A biometric anchor? That sounds like the ultimate leash for an autonomous buyer.
It is. The Agentic Ready program integrates biometric authentication, facial recognition, or fingerprint scans on your device to cryptographically tie the agent-initiated payment to a real person. The user has to provide that biometric consent at key moments to activate the payment credential. It ensures a machine can't initiate a financial transaction without a verifiable human authorizing the mission parameters.
So the tech is clearly working. They're buying books, they're buying chocolates, they're securing the transactions. But now we get to the critical, investigative core of this episode, the legal framework. Because when the AI makes a mistake, the technology works, but the legal structure is entirely absent.
This is the problem of hallucinated intent. The Santander pilot proved an AI can buy a book. But what happens if you authorize an AI agent with a $500 limit to buy the required textbook for my Biology 101 class, and it misinterprets that prompt, hallucinates, and buys 500 rubber ducks for $500?
Who eats that cost? The transaction itself is technically valid. The token was authorized, the spending limit was respected, the merchant delivered the goods, but the human's intent was completely violated by the machine's incompetence.
And here's the crucial point. Existing fraud frameworks like the Fair Credit Billing Act or PSD2 are built to handle unauthorized human fraud, stolen credit cards, hacked accounts. They are fundamentally not designed for authorized non-human incompetence.
So if I dispute a charge today because my credit card was stolen, the bank investigates whether I authorized it. But in agentic commerce, I did authorize the agent via that biometric anchor and tokenized limits.
Exactly. From the bank's perspective, that transaction is legitimate. Legal analysts are pointing out that there is currently no regulatory framework to dispute a charge based on the argument that my authorized AI agent made a stupid decision.
So the burden of parameters, the responsibility, falls on the consumer. If the AI agent executes a legally binding transaction within the parameters I set, I'm liable. That's a massive bottleneck for mass adoption, isn't it?
It is. Consumers are used to zero liability protection for credit card fraud. If adopting agentic commerce means consumers have to assume total financial liability for the hallucinations of a third-party LLM, adoption will stall dramatically. Until AI providers or financial networks are willing to underwrite the cost of AI mistakes, people will be deeply hesitant to let these agents make high-value purchases.
Let's zoom out now and look at the macroeconomic impact. How does e-commerce fundamentally change when the buyer isn't a human being but a piece of code?
The industry consensus is pointing to a rapid compression of the e-commerce funnel. 18 months ago, generative AI was a discovery tool. It helped you find the best deal. Now, it's an execution tool. It finds the deal, negotiates, and physically executes the payment, all while you're completely disengaged. Maybe you're asleep or in the shower.
This signals a monumental shift from user-initiated payments to machine-executed financial actions. What does that mean for merchants?
They're quietly panicking. AI-driven traffic to retail websites has surged over 4,700% in the last year alone. If an AI is doing the shopping, the entire foundation of modern e-commerce becomes obsolete. Traditional UI elements, psychological friction, targeted banner ads, optimized checkout pages, all useless against a Python script running an LLM.
So, designing for machines, not humans. The report mentions something called the Trusted Agent Protocol.
Yes, Visa has introduced this as part of its intelligent commerce ecosystem. It provides merchants with a framework to recognize and verify that an incoming AI agent has genuine commerce intent. It separates legitimate AI buyers, acting on behalf of verified humans, from malicious bots scraping data or attempting inventory hoarding.
So e-commerce is essentially transitioning from a business-to-consumer, or B2C model, to a business-to-agent, or B2A model, where merchants need to expose APIs directly to AI agents rather than serving HTML to human eyeballs.
And this leads us to the ultimate question, the profound implication that really stands out. For the last 100 years, advertising and retail have been built on one unbreakable law. To capture a consumer's wallet, you must first capture their attention.
But agentic commerce completely breaks that law.
It does. By delegating purchasing power to AI agents, consumers are decoupling their financial capital from their visual attention. A user no longer needs to look at a screen to spend money. What happens to the multi-trillion-dollar digital advertising industry when the entity making the purchasing decision cannot see the ads, cannot be psychologically manipulated by a countdown timer, and only evaluates products based on raw data and user parameters?
Agentic commerce isn't just changing how we pay, it threatens to dismantle the attention economy itself.
So, what we've seen from Santander, Visa, and the broader AI tooling ecosystem this past month confirms that agentic commerce has officially moved out of the R&D lab and into the real world. The technical infrastructure is robust, scaling rapidly.
Absolutely. Tokenization, biometric anchors, the model context protocol, it's all there, building the rails for this new economy.
But the technology has clearly outpaced the legal and regulatory frameworks. The unresolved liability of hallucinated intent remains the single greatest threat to consumer adoption. Who's on the hook for those 500 rubber ducks?
And beyond that, the shift from human-driven to agent-driven purchasing will force a total architectural redesign of global e-commerce, rendering traditional advertising and UI completely obsolete.
The narrative in 2026 isn't just about AI's ability to write software. It's about its newly acquired ability to spend money. The rails have been laid, the bots have been funded.
The question now is, who will be held responsible when the machines inevitably make a mistake? And what does a world look like when your wallet is open, even when your eyes aren't on a screen?
That's all for this episode of Context Window. Join us next time for more on the AI tools shaping how we build software. If you're building with AI, subscribe. We cover what matters.
Ship smarter, not harder.